What I thought was dope was, and I told Wack this, like I appreciated him being like a catalyst to kind of de-escalate what was going on between you and the guys at.
Okay, I would be happy to give Wack credit for something like that, but in actuality, that was entirely me. I just chose to have the conversation with Wack. He didn't even know that was coming, and he was entirely antagonistic for the most part, so it's not like he really helped out too much, but he was my sounding board for that conversation. I think he kind of
helped guide guide it a bit,
He'd been talking to some of them off camera and all that too, so I guess that probably helped.
Yeah, for you, I mean, if it feels like it feels like a lot more positive, like this negative energy isn't hanging over both of y'all's platforms. Do you feel like kind of a relief since you've had that conversation on camera and kind of like said, I'm going to de-escalate this. I'm going to step back.
Yeah, I think like at various points in your career, you have to be willing to kind of zoom out, look at yourself, look at what you're doing with your time. And I mean, even just on a super basic level, I have this constantly where I'm thinking about what I'm doing with No Jumper. And it's kind of like, well, I'm putting in this much time to earn this much money from No Jumper, and in some sense, I'm kind of ignoring my opportunity with Plug Talk, which maybe is 2 or 3 times bigger opportunity
on revenue.
And when I zoom out and I look at my business, and I'm like, oh well, you spent a lot of mental energy this week in arguing with people, and nobody benefits from this or seems interested in this besides like the small little nest of hardcore fans that are talking about it on Reddit and stuff. Yeah. It's not like all the viral platforms pick it up when I say something to AD.
Because you had some good rants. I hit you like, yo, you had some fucking real Paul Heyman-esque WWE top-notch.
Yeah, I got that in me. But at the end of the day, it's just like, what is the shelf life of this? Like I can go viral doing all kinds of stuff that doesn't like impact my life. And then when I saw
impact people around you.
Exactly. I saw this shit happen with Dub, and it wasn't just like what happened on camera with Dub. It's like I'm having conversations with Brick Baby and Dub after the fact, and there's just things coming up in the conversation about neighborhoods and about groups of people, and they're not getting along, and oh my God, this might happen and shit. And I'm just like looking at it and being like, okay, you trying to make good content on the internet resulted in a situation that could very easily turn bad, and even
that situation could spark 20 other situations.
And it's just like, what is the fucking point? Why am I doing this?
Over podcast beef?
Yeah, and I realized in that moment, I'm just like, well, you could just kind of like pull it back and just wave the white flag and just take a little mini L right now to basically spare yourself a lot of wasted energy.
I don't even think
and a
it's
lot
an
of
L,
bullshit,
bro. I think it's like growth.
I was surprised that like even the audience, who obviously like wants to call me a bitch and wants to point out me being a pussy, whatever, they talked about it for a day and then they were kind of over it too. Because I think to a certain extent, like in the early days of us beefing, that was the most viral content on their platform. And then this time around, it wasn't. Like it may have helped their content a bit. They might have got more views from it, but it's not like it was 9 months ago,
right,
where like the biggest clip on Back on Fig that week is going to be talking about me. Now it's just not really having that impact. And I see Joe Budden and Rory and Mal still going back and forth and just sort of like sub-dissing each other and stuff all the time. And I don't know. To me, that seems kind of silly. Like, you guys have an opportunity in front of you. Like, why the fuck is your energy still going into this? And granted, it's not like all their energy, but they're still just kind of doing this song and dance, and it's the exact same thing as us. And to me, I'm kind of like, you guys could probably just not do that. And like,
all of you guys have kids. All of you guys are fathers.
Most of us.
All of you guys are, well, obviously, I'm talking about like, the main guys involved. Everybody's got kids, man.
Duno has yet to prove that he can procreate.
I'm sure he's all right.
Probably got a nut or two in him. Yeah.
Shout out to Duno. But for me, it was like just seeing like some of the, like I get it was for entertainment, but just I feel like once it kind of got past a certain point, it was like, oh man, like it almost has to like be a thing, But you did a good job of like leaning into it. You leaned into that motherfucker for real. I think you said it kicked off here.
Yeah, it did, because I didn't, after they left the channel, I didn't do any interviews. I went on my honeymoon, etc. Then I come back and finally you asked me, and I'm like, okay, I'll do an interview with Kev. And that,
I feel like you kind of snapped into your what is it, the big
22 thing. Yeah, but I didn't really like what I said. Didn't really like. Compared to what was said later, what I said on here was like nothing.
Right.
But it definitely like sparked a lot of conversation.
Have you heard from Lush at all? It looks like he's he's relapsed.
Yeah, I heard about that. I haven't heard from him. A lot of people keep kind of hitting me up asking if I want to have him on the podcast, and I'm kind of considering it. But yeah, the relapse thing was kind of sad just because I had so many conversations with him on camera about him basically moving, or like on camera, him talking about how important it was for him to not relapse and how he couldn't really handle smoking weed, or he couldn't handle drinking from time to time, or taking Xans or whatever he's copped to so far. So yeah, that's a little.
So you would be open
sad.
to maybe having him on just to.
I'm definitely not angry at him in the way that I was at one point, but am I dying to rejuvenate his career by having a conversation with him? Because as soon as I started to think about it, I pictured him going home and immediately doing a 5-hour live stream talking about what we just talked about on the podcast.
What's going to happen?
And then throughout the next week, going on 10 other podcasts to talk about the fact that he just did a podcast with me. And I don't necessarily know that I want to be the one putting the battery in his back in that regard, but it would be.
It might help him heal, though. It might help him heal. I feel like that's like an open wound of his life, because this is the biggest shit that's ever come up for him.
Yeah.
And he kind of fumbled it. He kind of fucked it up.
I think that there was probably a time period where if Lush had died, I would have just never said anything publicly.
Yeah. And
now I think that if Lush died, I would probably like tweet RIP Lush. So that's growth.
That is growth.
That's a big step, right? Who knows where we might be in 6 months from now? Maybe I could actually talk to him. I don't know.
Would you ever, I don't know about T-Rail, but would you ever entertain bringing AD back on the podcast one day? Because it feels like that's the one in relationship that was, I guess, as less disrespectful in terms of the commentary back and forth. AD kind of.
Yeah, that would probably be plausible. I wouldn't be super shocked by that happening. I think that they're still kind of like ganged up over there, and they just don't. I think that probably if AD did that, everybody else would be looking at him like he was bugging. And I think it's basically like both of us trying to prove that, not just both of us, like me and AD, but really everybody's kind of trying to prove that they don't need each other, right? So I don't feel like I'm not really in the position where I want to like boost their shit up by
I'm not talking about
that.
soon. I'm talking about maybe shit a year from now.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like honestly, probably someday we'll just like see each other and end up in a conversation, or somebody. There's already like people in between us who've kind of mentioned it of like, oh, I could get you guys on the phone or whatever. And I don't think either of us are super eager to do it. But I also
Has Wack tried?
No.
Okay.
Not so much. Maybe to him. He hasn't really mentioned it to me.
Yeah, I feel like Wax would be the guy who would just be like, I feel like he would do it on camera though.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna call AD right now.
If he didn't do it on camera, he would go in Clubhouse and literally just tell everybody every single thing that we talked about for sure. But
yo, is Clubhouse still Clubhousing?
I feel like it's Wax House now. It's just Wack and like 10 other people. I don't know. He talks about it like it's fucking huge, but I've realistically like almost never been on there.
I think
Is that a pound of mushrooms?
Yeah.
I just had to ask. I couldn't tell if it was like pieces of cardboard or
No,
okay.
it's obviously mushrooms you put on pizza, not anything of the elite.
Oh,
sorts.
okay, right.
Yeah, pizza mushrooms for
Got
sure.
it.
Yeah. I fucking forgot that's sitting there.
It's a lot of yeah.
I mean, it's not that much.
That would be a weird day right there.
Eating all of that?
If I
That'd be a weird fucking year.
eat a handful of that, I'll be on the moon.